Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of Heir to the Remnants. This is a fan rewrite of Episode 7 for Star Wars. I do apologize for the long wait, but I plan to produce the coming parts at a faster rate. Once again, for anybody who's not in the know, this is an audio-based series where I describe the overall story to you all, and for you all to listen to, primarily, with a few screenshots or pictures that I find on the internet. Regardless, I hope you all enjoy the video, and thank you all for the support. Just to recap briefly what happened in part 1 in the story, we opened up with Yavin 4 at the Jedi Temple, and there was an attack where it seemed 3 Imperial Star Cruisers bombed the Jedi Temple and also saw a siege. However, there was, it did appear at least, a turncoat among the Imperial ranks where a trooper assisted the Jedi. Regardless, we end the scene and we now shift over to Kashyyyk, a nightly view of Kashyyyk. The night sky was illuminated by a raging fire of one of the massive trees on the planet. On the other hand, it was also raining viciously down on the planet, and we actually pan over to a hooded figure who is kneeling down in the mud where a body of a Wookiee was. The hooded figure raised his head to reveal the bearded Luke Skywalker, beginning to have traces of gray in his beard. Another hooded figure walked up and asked if Luke had found anything. Luke turned around and shook his head at Lando Calrissian, who made a face of frustration. He reassured Luke that they'd catch Tyran. Luke responded by informing Lando that Tyran didn't work alone on this one. However, he did thank Lando for his reassurance. Lando then proceeded to suggest that Tyran could have returned to the systems of Mandalore to hide out. To be fair, he was a Mandalorian. He recommended that they send word to the ruler of Mandalore, Boba Fett, and ask if he can keep a lookout for him. Luke agreed to that suggestion and rose from the muddy ground. He and Lando walked back to the Falcon, the Millennium Falcon, where R2 was on the ramp, and who proceeded to also greet them with some excited sets of beeps. Relieved to see them back all right. Luke gave R2 a somber smile as they all boarded and went toward the cockpit where Chewie was. Chewie swung back in his chair and Luke just shook his head. Chewie let out a roar of anger and started to get up. Lando and Luke did their best to calm him down enough to not, so that he did not lash out in anger. They all eventually sat in silence. Finally, Luke uttered out an apology to Chewie, saying it was his fault. Luke puts the blame on himself for making the decision to imprison Tyran. Lando proceeded to tell Luke that he shouldn't shoulder all the blame. There's no way any of them could have predicted that Tyran would have been broken out of prison. Luke responded saying how everything that Tyran has done is his fault for the past 2 years. If he didn't go after Tyran in the first place, Jason would have still been alive. Lando put a hand on Luke's shoulder and asked where the optimistic kid went all those years ago. Just because things seem hopeless now doesn't mean it's impossible. Luke looked at both of them and Chewie let out a few grunts in agreement to Lando's words. Lando also added that he's willing to search the ends of the galaxy for the man that killed his godson. Chewie let out a roar of agreement, and Luke nodded again, but added that he had no intention of killing Tyran. He'd bring him in personally and see to it that he'd be tried fairly. Lando and Chewie both agreed, before Lando suggested they inform the nearby chief that they hadn't made it there in time. Luke says he's going to meditate and heads to the main room in the ship, where the holo table is located, and sits down on the floor to meditate. The sound slowly melded away into the silence as he cleared his mind, calming it so that he could focus his energy on reaching out to his sister Leia, star systems away. He felt her presence through the Force. She was untrained, but they had a bond. He could feel her concern as she sensed his presence, and he sent off waves of reassurance that they were fine. But they still were unsuccessful in their mission before pulling away his consciousness. He had become trained in trying to send formulated thoughts to her, while her lack of training only allowed her to send out her emotions in communication more vaguely. If she had chosen the path of the Jedi rather than try to be part of the Council of the New Republic, who knows how strong she could be. When he pulled his mind away, he felt something dark within the Force. Cries of pain and death. He reached out to the pain to understand what was wrong. He couldn't get a grasp on it. It was like grains of sand slipping through his fingers. Then he heard his father's voice. "Jensen!" And his eyes snapped open. He breathed heavily and his forehead had beads of sweat on it. As a quick note, I didn't know how to visually depict that meditation scene, but I felt like describing his abilities as well as what he was trying to sense would be a good addition to help explain it. He got up. Anyways, sorry. That's all I really had to note. But effectively, Luke is seeing things of his past as well as potentially hearing, or, sorry, maybe not his past, but the vision is left up to interpretation. Oops, kind of like maybe semi-spoiled it. Anyways, he got up slowly and went back to the cockpit on weak legs to see that Chewie and Han were making preparations to fly. R2 looked back and beeped out some concern for Luke, who didn't look in the best of shape. Lando turned around and quickly helped Luke to one of the chairs, asking what happened. Luke shook his head and said that he wasn't sure, but he knows that it isn't, or at least it wasn't good, from what he heard and saw. Or heard and felt. Lando gave a grave look before shaking his head and sitting back down in his chair before mumbling, "Of course it's more bad news. Why can't we get good news for a change?" Luke looked out of the cockpit one last time at the fire that was losing the war against the rain, slowly getting smaller and smaller. The flames were the last thing we'd see before the transition over to the next scene. The scene shifts into a view of someone's boots, black boots, echoing in a large hallway. The shot slowly pans up to see a caped masked man turning toward a door. I took a bit of inspiration from a few artwork designs and thought I'd actually share them here to hopefully give a better visualization of what I'm thinking about this character and what they look like. This masked man enters a large sliding room and sliding door, and he steps into a dark room. It was filled with art pieces on the wall, illuminated by lights. There was dead animals, trinkets, glass cases, all sorts of tokens from different worlds. All of them filled to the brim with things from across the galaxy. In the center of the room, there was a wide table with a high back chair. This is going to be my voice impression of Grand Admiral Thrawn, so I'll do voice changes, but I'll try to stay consistent with Thrawn. "I take it you made it back without any issue," came the collected voice of Thrawn. The masked man walked closer and saw that past the high back chair was a long row of holographic officers from the Remnants. Most were fairly old, but there were young newcomers, or younger in age. There was one or two young females, and there was also a pair of aliens. One was a Trandoshan, an alien that looks like Bosk from Episode 5, and the second was a Bothan. "Who is this? One of your agents, Grand Admiral?" demanded one of the officers, positioned close to Thrawn. "No," replied Thrawn. "He doesn't serve us. He assists me when I request of it. Consider him an independent ally." The room falls silent as the masked man stands next to Thrawn, but he remains quiet. His large cloak covered most of his clothes underneath, and the hood was up, but that didn't prevent the silver and black mask with the red glowing visor to look around the room and observe everyone around him. This is a Trandoshan speaking, so I'm going to try to do the voice.
I question why you brought him here if he is what you call an independent ally. With all due respect, Grand Admiral.
Piped up the Trandoshan. The masked man didn't flinch as Thrawn leaned forward and pressed his fingertips together. It would be wise for you, Admiral Revis, to focus on putting down the uprising on Ryloth before you question who I align our goals with. We are wasting time on this matter. I called this meeting to provide a report on the events of Yavin 4, if there is no protest to the matter. There was silence as the officers in the room all looked to Grand Admiral Thrawn. I received word from the captain of the Revedon that the attack occurred mere hours ago. They have successfully scattered the Jedi, and even managed to capture one of their council members, a Twi'lek named Ahsoka Tano. There were a few murmurs among the officers before Thrawn continued. She is safely aboard the Revedon, from what the captain has informed me. The plan remains unchanged, despite this good fortune that has befallen us. Admiral Tarl, how goes the assault of the New Republic supply routes? A younger female admiral leans forward and informs them that everything is going as Thrawn calculated. The bombardments have led to fewer shipments, but heavier military aid. Thrawn congratulates the admiral and cautions her not to be too bold. Allow some shipments through, and be selective on what you attack. Thrawn makes it clear that he wants their numbers to appear small and limited to the New Republic, to give off the appearance that they are small cells rather than one large entity. Thrawn assures the admirals that everything is going well, and to continue as planned before ending the transmission, submerging the room into darkness again, aside from the small glow of the display cases. I assume you found what I asked for, since you are here, Thrawn said to the masked man before slowly spinning the chair around, his red eyes bore into the cloaked man. I found the reptiles you were looking for. The voice of the man crackled out. I felt strange around them, though. I don't quite understand what happened, but it felt like I was disconnected, perhaps? Thrawn offered up, and the masked man nodded. I don't see how this upholds your end of the deal, though, the masked man responded. I've spent months serving your command, with reports, quests, and errands, all to benefit your empire. You just got a glimpse of what I'm doing for you, Thrawn offered up in reply. My plan is to benefit you and the Imperial Army. The pieces are being set up as we speak. The attack on Yavin 4 was mainly done, as a matter of fact, because of Skywalker. He is still preoccupied with the terrorist Tyron. That didn't, the masked man started to say, but Thrawn finished his thought for him. Need to happen? Perhaps. However, this was to get the Republic's attention, not Skywalker's. The Revedon will be the bait, and the Republic will play into our hands, thanks to the Jedi. As for your revenge, I have another assignment that will help set the stage for it. The mission requires that you head to the lava planet Mustafar. I received valuable information that key criminal syndicates will be gathering in the coming days. You'll be provided with more information on your target. The planet can be an intimidating place, but I'm sure it won't rattle you. How do you know the target is there? The masked man asked, and Thrawn's lips curved into a small smile. You'd be surprised how easy it is to turn loyal followers for the right price, Thrawn replied simply. No, I don't believe that it was a trap meant for us. The criminal underworld has less to offer than what it used to during the Clone Wars. These are fragmented cells, desperate to piece themselves back into being powerful lords from years past. We've made several deals of good faith to ensure you will be an invited guest to their meeting. Just then, Captain Pallion enters the room. Thrawn concludes the meeting and says that he will brief the masked man on the mission shortly when he wraps up his meeting with the captain. The masked man leaves without another word, and once again the camera cuts as the metal door slides shut. Captain Pallion, Thrawn spoke up as the camera pans back to both of them. The captain keeps himself at attention before standing before Thrawn. He was an older man, gray hair, wisps of white. He served during the attack on Endor, the Battle of Endor in Episode 6. It would be wise for you to respect our guest. He's an ally of ours. His loyalty isn't to the Empire, sir, Captain Pallion replied quickly. I am well aware of his motivations and his intentions, Thrawn replied coolly. We must continue to establish good faith with him, if we want to build his trust. His goals are not our own, but he can become a powerful weapon for the Empire, if called upon in the future. Sir, if I may speak freely, Pallion started, and Thrawn merely nodded while his red eyes bore into the captain. This Sith poses a threat to your plan, and if, as he grows in more power, I fear he will try and either overtake your power or become too strong to control. All the more reason to establish good faith in him, Captain, Thrawn responded. I will also assure you, Captain, that he is no Sith. He is no Darth Vader. For now, we must let his goals take center stage. In the meantime, I shall continue executing the plan that will bring the Republic to its knees. The scene ends with the camera locked on Thrawn's eyes to end the scene. Alright, that will actually conclude part 2. I had a blast recording this, and it feels good to be back. I know I only focused on 2 scenes specifically, but I wanted to break down these scenes more in depth with dialogue, especially the Thrawn one, so you can understand what's going on instead of just a brief summary of everything. I feel like it's a little more interactive, at least in that aspect. But yeah, so here we got introduced to Luke Skywalker, who's hunting a bounty hunter that he has history with, or at least an entity, Tyran, that he has issues with, and he's accompanied by Chewie and Lando. After that, we get the introduction of another villain along with Thrawn, and also a greater elaboration of what's going on. Thrawn has a master plan after years of the Empire being in hiding. Now it comes down to how he will execute the plan, and we will hopefully see how it unfolds. Well, whether you want to see it unfold or not, that's up for debate. But regardless, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel, of course, if you choose. Let me know what you think down below. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm trying to take inspiration from the Thrawn trilogy as well as other entities for how to write his character, his dialogue. So feedback is greatly appreciated on that. But regardless, hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in part 3 of Heir to the Remnants.